Good morning, everyone. Happy St. Patrick's Day. And this is the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee meeting for March 17th, 2022. And it looks like we have a full complement this morning. Lee and Randy are with me here in the chambers, and Amanda and Ann are on Zoom. I see Jeff just arrived too. Changes to the agenda. We want to add the Title VI resolution that Dwight Mengel requested that we do. And I'll put that in item 6 in transportation. Morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Fernando Darragon just joined us here in the chambers too. Is there any public comments this morning?
I have not received that.
I don't have anything on chair's report this morning. Let's go right to Lisa Holmes, County Administrator report.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning. Where's your green?
Oh, I forgot. Oh, I wore the opposite of green. I'm so sorry, and I'm very Irish too. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I just wanted to briefly update the committee. As you're, I think, aware, FEMA has been working on updating the flood maps locally in the county. And as it relates to county facilities and buildings, the updated flood zone, well, and actually the current flood zone, some of our county-owned buildings are in the flood zone right now: solid waste, mental health, and then 3 of our leased buildings, DMV, the Workforce New York Career Center, and Assigned Council, which are both in Center Ithaca, are all, will all be or are currently now in the FEMA designated flood zones. And all our current flood insurance coverage covers all of our buildings in the flood zone, except mental health, because that is in what is considered a high hazard flood zone. So I just wanted to make the F&I committee aware of this. We do not currently, or the county has not had flood insurance on the mental health building. We did investigate and received a quote from the National Flood Insurance Program about what it would cost if we chose to cover flood insurance for the mental health building. It would be about $30,000 a year for about $500,000 of coverage. It also, after speaking with Arel, our boilers, the elevator machinery is all located on the top floor of that building. Below grade in that building is the fire system, and 6 to 8 feet above grade is the electrical system and IT server. So I just wanted to make sure that our legislators were aware of where we stood vis-a-vis county buildings and the new FEMA flood maps and flood zones. And if you want to have a discussion now or in the future about this, or whether to make any changes to our current flood insurance, welcome that conversation.
Okay, thank you for that. Questions for Lisa? Lisa, $30,000 a year for flood insurance seems awfully high for but not unsurprising, because flood insurance for houses, for example, is very, very expensive for people to have that are in flood zones. Just wondering, could we do something like in our insurance reserve, add $5,000 a year, somehow designating that it would be used for flood repair, should we have something like that happen to the mental health building? Is that
Yeah.
a possibility?
Absolutely. It would be a kind of a hedge in our self-insurance against something like that happening. Mental health.
Well, I for one would like us to see that maybe in your proposed budget, if that in future doesn't have to be $30,000, but it could be something and build it up to some point, and then we could let it sit after we get to a certain level. Rely on certainly on Harrell for recommendation on that. And Koreman.
Thank you, Mike. I like that idea, Mike, and I'm also okay with now without having the flood insurance, especially hearing the utilities, the important things are raised. 5 years of $30,000, that's $150,000. That could be used for repairs should we need them. So thank you for addressing this.
Anything else for Lisa this morning? Thanks for joining us here, Lisa.
Thank you.
Transportation, we've got a resolution. The amendment of the 2022 Tompkins County budget to reflect appropriation of the 2022-2023 budgets for the Ithaca Tompkins County Transportation Council and authorization to implement the amendment. Fernando, you're here with us. Would you like to address this?
Well, here to answer any questions. This is a step or a resolution that comes to you every year. The Transportation Council's budget is set up in following the schedule of the state budget. So it's on March to April, where the counties is calendar year. So every year we need to modify, basically do an estimate for the first 3 months. Then when we have exact numbers, we have to make an adjustment. Once we have the exact budget from the state. So we come to you every year to kind of do this bookkeeping amendment. And that's what this is doing.
Can I get a motion? By Lee, seconded by Randy. Discussion here.
I just have a question generally. Of course, I went to that meeting.
Right.
If you have, so I'd like to learn. Is all of your funding for all employees come from outside sources? So is it?
Yeah, it's all federal highway and federal transit dollars.
Okay.
And then it gets, that money goes to the state. The state manages it. The county will host us and thus sort of first instance expenditures, and then we get reimbursed from the state.
Okay.
So our budget resides within the county's budget, but all our funds come from the feds.
So we have oversight with your budget. We approve your budget, for example, right?
I
Every
think the
year.
word we agreed to, it gets affirmed.
Affirms the budget. Okay. But it's a different relationship than other things because of the funding source and the fact that we are an MPO.
Right.
Okay.
And
Thanks, Mike, and thanks, Fernando. In my district, I was fortunate to watch your presentations to the village of Trumansburg and the town of Ulysses over this past week and a half. So thank you for going out to the municipalities and explaining what you do and what your services are. So if I have it correctly, we're pass through for your budget. We do affirm it, and the county does provide in-kind not, I don't know if it's service, but in-kind match by providing a facility, office space for you. Is that correct?
Correct. It's so basically our office space. But also we have an agreement with the county for services like IT and personnel and such. we work under the county structure. So we very much behave like county employees.
Okay.
Other questions? Ready to vote? Randy?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
Lee? Yes. And I'm yes.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Thanks for being here. Anything else you'd like to report to us?
No, not right now.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Fernando. All right, let's go to the resolution that Dwight Mingle has asked us to act on, approving Tompkins County 2022 Title VI program for the Federal Transit Administration. Why don't we get this on and then we'll turn to Dwight. Someone want to move it? Randy, there's a second? Seconded by Amanda. Go ahead, Dwight. Dwight, welcome to our committee.
Yes, it's my,
And you might want to give us a little nutshell about your department. We have a couple of newer legislators here, and then go into your Title VI.
okay. First, I work under the auspices of the Department of Social Services. I have a separate budget. It's called Transportation Planner. I was kind of amused by it, but that's what it is. So what I do is, first, I apply for all federal and state public transportation funding grants. So I'm the grant manager of all those programs. And in that capacity, we have a very specifically defined relationship when we're using federal money. The county is the recipient. TCAT is a sub-recipient. Gadabout is a sub-recipient. That means that there's specific money that flows through for them to use. The county has sub-recipient agreements with both of them. And then we have a number of third-party contracts with Cooperative Extension, with the Human Services Coalition, with other providers of very specific services. So the second thing that I do falls under the umbrella of mobility management. And that's a very broad umbrella that can be defined in many, many different ways. But here we have agencies implement very specific programs. From Cooperative Extension has the Way to Go program, which is a community mobility education program. The Center for Community Transportation, through Bike Walk Tompkins, they do travel training to assist people to learn how to ride bicycles, adults and children, and to ride bikes safely. And there's even education in terms of how to navigate being a pedestrian. And we have people who have immigrated from other places come into the community, and they're engaged about how to safely use services, how to ride TCAT, how to use TCAT, how to use Gadabout, et cetera, et cetera. The third thing that I'm doing is I'm the project lead on a federal research and demonstration program for our Tompkins Mobility as a Service program. The federal government awarded us $829,000 to develop a program with all of our local partners, and then have a pilot of this program, and that will be starting later this year. So we've got a very full plate. What's very interesting about this, where I am, is that there's only like 24 communities in the country where a social services has a transportation planning component. As a result, quite a few people, they will come and see me if there's a specific transportation related obstacle or issue that working with the client that they have, and all of this stuff. So that's what I do when I go to work. This Title VI program is it's very specific, and it's very specific. It relates to FTA regs that are published. They provided that outline of what they're looking for. Every 3 years it was, but it was postponed to 4 years because of COVID. We have a update, and they always amend what they're looking for. And I actually, when I began working on this a couple months back, I was a little bit, I'll say, I was thinking of this almost like a grant program where you're looking, for example, you're going out for public comment before you like have it. But then I read through all the regs again, and it is like very clear that the feds are looking for how we are going to implement what their requirements are under Title VI. And so our main area that we need for community outreach is really the notification and the accessibility to this program. If people have a complaint, if they have an issue, what's the process that they use for doing that, and making sure that this is available, that there's language assistance in any for any aspect of this program. So after we have, so what the process is that we will send in a program after the legislature addresses the resolution, and then it all gets packaged, it gets sent in, it'll go to the regional civil rights officer, and inevitably they will get back with changes that they're looking to make, and then we make those changes. We have a very simple policy with the feds. Whatever they want, they get. You know, it cuts down any type of issues. And then we can continue applying for grants, and we're good to go. as far as the process is. So I'm happy to take any questions, and I would actually be happy at some point in time for especially the new legislators, but it would probably be good anyway. I realized this is the first time in 2 years that I've shown up at a table. And I kind of like it. This is a nice,
Sorry, we didn't have breakfast.
a very nice room. So that's where we're at. I will say that TCAT has a Title VI plan and Gadabout has a Title VI plan. Their Gadabout is completely done with their approval process. The TCAT board is going to be acting on approving their plan next Thursday. And my understanding of this would go to the legislature after the committee action on April 3rd and 5th. And that's fine. So I'll ask if anybody has any questions.
Are there questions for Dwight? Randy?
Just out of curiosity, so how many grants do you think are you dealing with a year? I mean, ballpark. And do you have to like report on all those back to the people who gave you the grants? I mean, there's a reporting process.
Oh, not only is there a reporting process, every 3 years, normally, we have a triennial review. And we have about 21 areas of requirements that we need to completely document everything with the FTA and their consultants. And usually the review would be 24 hours, that the in-person would be 24 hours. Before that in-person meeting held, you had like 3 months to write an encyclopedic report and send that in. Now we did the encyclopedic report and we're going to have a 2-week virtual triennial review. And
Oh boy.
I'm so much looking forward to that.
That's happening this year.
And it's happening like in the next maybe 6 weeks, okay? We don't know exactly when. But, so yes, we do, quote, report back.
Yeah. Otherwise you don't get other grants, right?
Right.
Right.
And so, but, you say yes. And so you keep that philosophy.
I would like to meet with you at some point and maybe other legislatures would as well, just to understand the programs themselves, but
Oh, sure.
I won't bother with that right now.
Thank you. I'd be very willing to attend.
After you're on.
Thanks.
Are we ready to vote on the resolution? Randy?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes,
Amanda?
Yes,
Lee? Yes. I vote yes.
Thank you.
and thanks
Thanks.
Floyd, for sending the extra information on this. I appreciate it.
Oh, yes.
I think I'm remiss when we had talked with Fernando here a few minutes ago. I see Fernando in action at the ITCTC meetings on a regular basis, and I forgot he wasn't at our committee last year. So welcome to our committee,
Thank you.
and we appreciate having you here. And again, I'll give you an opportunity if there's anything you'd like to mention that we haven't already talked about for your department, with your agency or whatever. Is it a department or is it an agency? Or what is it?
It's a Metropolitan Planning
It's
Organization.
your MPO.
Right. Just real quick, we're housed downstairs, share offices with the planning department. Absolutely welcome, stop in anytime. We manage federal surface transportation dollars. We work closely with Jeff, with DOT, and with the municipalities do a lot of work with transit and with Dwight, and just moving the monies, meeting certain requirements that are, federal requirements to have a program. So what we call the Transportation Improvement Program. You're probably going to hear about it this year because it's getting redone this year. But our projects are listed and included in there. And every 5 years, we do a 20-year plan. But the TIP, that Transportation Improvement Program, is sort of the heart of the agency and, where the teeth are, because that's where the money is. And that will be updated this year. And any project that uses federal funding, which is a lot of the bridges that we do in the community, a lot of the larger projects that you may see around the county, is included in the TIP and gets managed by the Transportation Council. We do amendments as projects get implemented and need changes. So this year there's a lot of activity with the infrastructure bill from the feds, and a lot of monies are flowing from there. And I think 2022 is going to be interesting. A lot of new stuff coming up. So we'll see how that all pans out and what activity we end up with in Tompkins County.
Thanks for that. Okay, shall we move on?
I just wanted to make one quick
Certainly.
comment to Mike about the Title VI program, which the county is required to have a Title VI plan and submit Title VI plans for all of the programs for which we receive federal funding. So we have to do that for the airport as well, and some grants through the planning department and county administration. And we have a Title VI coordinator centralized through county administration. And we're working to centralize the process and the language and so forth in the Title VI documents that we submit on behalf of the county, so that we can ensure that we're meeting the requirements, or hopefully exceeding the requirements in terms of public participation, eligibility, outreach, et cetera. So I've asked Deanna to work with Dwight and work with Roxanne at the airport and several of our other departments on this. So I just want to say, Dwight, we look forward to working with you further on this plan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, let's move to Jeff Smith in our highway department. Morning, Jeff.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming over.
Good to see Dwight and Fernando. Haven't seen them in a long time.
Right.
Looking forward to meeting face to face again. That does sound like a good thing. I don't have a lot for the committee today. It's if you have questions, we have a capital payment summary. And if you look further down in the packet, there's a transfer as well. So if you have any questions on that.
Are there questions on the capital payment summary? Central Chapel Bridge.
Yep.
The Chapel Road Bridge.
Yep. The bridge is completed.
Jeff, I got a couple of questions. One, I read recently that New York State ranks third in the worst states for potholes. And I wondered, now we're into pothole season, and wondered how we're doing and how are our roads holding up now that we're getting into spring?
We haven't seen any terrible situations of roads coming apart. My sense is the frost is coming out and we didn't get a lot of freeze thaw action, so I think we're going to be okay. We have a very aggressive pothole program. We have in the recent years purchased what we call a hot box that we modified. We usually have a small crew throughout the summer hitting problem areas, edges, potholes with being a hot box. It's heated and we get hot material right from the plant that drops into this box. It keeps it warm. So it gives us time to travel around the county and fill those potholes. And that's really helped through the winter and that sort of thing. We can't operate that in the cold times, and the plants aren't open, of course. But in those times, we're able to purchase what you call cold mix, but we still put that in the hot box. We heat it. And so we're still putting a hotter, sticky material down in the holes, which also holds not as good as the hot mix in the summer. But the two seasonal combined programs, I feel are, we've never been in a better spot as far as the specificity of repairing potholes. What we do is lasting, and we're seeing a big difference in how many days a week that we have to go out there. Not saying we don't get calls, we absolutely do, but we're able to react, and with a program that's actually, it sustains itself in the hole and not, the next day gets just blown out by the next vehicle that goes over it. So we're good there. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Jeff, I missed, what road did you say was breaking up?
We don't have a road that's breaking up like we've
Oh, I
had in the past.
misunderstood.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
My second question is about bridges. Do we still have a bridge washing program that we do in the spring or the summer?
Yeah. We do an annual bridge washing program. We focus on our steel bridges, our steel deck bridges, our open girder, the steel webbing decks, so we can really get in there and wash the salt off as much as we can. Not to say that there are some, the more modern concrete bridges that we can actually spray down and get underneath and spray any of the debris, hit the ends, mostly the ends of the big stringer beams is what we would wash. But as we build more new bridges, there's less and less of that. But we are still doing that. It's not always just in the spring, but we hit them pretty hard in the spring. And then what we don't get to, we definitely get on an annual basis throughout the summer.
Other questions for Jeff? Randy Brown.
I'm a member of Hilldale Golf Course, so I've got to say that. But I was approached by the maintenance guy there, and they were curious about crosswalk across the road where they walk across. And he said they weren't allowed to do it. I don't know if that's a county road or a town road. Apparently, private individuals aren't allowed to put crosswalks. I mean, the white markers to lineate them.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the area or the road, or
I think it's Applegate Road. Maybe it's town road.
I know that too. I golf there. And it's a great little golf course. I don't know that they have like a dedicated area that they cross, and I thought that they did have one right by the clubhouse.
There's two of them there.
I'd have to check in to see if we do it or they do it.
They don't have a problem doing it. They thought they didn't have the right to do it because it's technically not their road. So that was the question.
I do feel it's our position that we should do it, not have, they would need to get a highway work permit, and it would have to be done to a manual of uniform traffic control standards and everything, just like we would. And if they were to do it all that and have a contractor come in and do it, we could give them a highway work permit, probably more work with the contractor. That wouldn't be unusual for us to do that. I wasn't aware of when that conversation would have been Mary, I think. I know her. She could call me, or I can stop up there. And I didn't know there was a issue. I would have thought she would have said something to me long ago.
It was Rick Springer. It was Rick Springer.
What's that?
It was Rick Springer.
Rick, yeah, okay, yeah.
And Mary probably definitely call you.
Oh, yeah, I know. That's why I'm kind of smiling, because I hear about all the county issues when I see her, because she knows I'm employed by the county.
Right.
So
wow. Great.
I'll follow up.
Great. And the other question I have, does the highway department they clear roads, you know, with brush and those kinds of things, brush hogging and whatnot. Is there a log of all those things happening now, of when you did a road, and how does that process work?
Yeah, we do. We have a couple of fairly long sidearm mowers that we maintain throughout the winter, really, as long as the weather allows. We have two that are operating throughout the county. And then we also have two other roadside just mowers that one reaches out, one mows the roadside, that we when the grass is growing, when the intersection, sight distance, driveways, that's going on. We try to get that on as early as spring at the rate as the grass is growing. But we have four, so there's like there's two on each side of the county, and we'll go around. And actually there's a few towns that if they're in the neighborhood, they'll let us know and they'll mow a little county road or county road intersection if there's a sight distance issue. So we do have that. We also have what we refer to as like a flail head that attaches to our grade all, which gives us more reach. It's more of a construction piece of equipment, and that also maintains and keeps our right of way, our overhang, things that's more small, brushy in nature. And if you don't get it when it's smaller like that, it would take a lot more work with people on the ground dropping trees and feeding a chipper, which we do that as well, where we're cutting canopy to get sunlight down on the road, better winter maintenance, longer lasting roads, and then also cutting back, our right of way. We take out dead, dying, and dangerous trees within our right of way. We work with a lot of landowners as best we can. Not 100%, had a few issues, but we always try and let them know. Most of the time, they're very happy that we're going to take a really dead tree in their front yard. But we are very much a right of way tree cutting management department. It's a large part of what we do.
Is that a state requirement, or does the county set, hey, we're going to do this twice a year, or how does that work? I mean, is it just you're required to do it? And
I think it's part of our own maintenance. I think it's very common with all highway departments, DOT, state down to the town. You need to maintain, and it's a safety thing. It's a sight distance issue. It's very common. It's a big part of what all of the highway departments around the state are needed to do. I don't know that it's in highway law as a requirement or anything. I don't see that. It could be, but I don't recall. I think maintenance of your right of way probably is in there, but not as clear as saying that you must be like annually or biannually, or it must be mowed or chipped, or what kind of operation that you need to do.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Couple more, if I could, Jeff. Randy's bringing up about a crosswalk. Reminded me last week at the Dryden Town Board meeting, they're talking about German Crossroad crossing for the Dryden Rail Trail. And they're focusing now on really trying to get the speed limit reduced through that area. And they're looking for whatever help we can give them on that road to try to reduce the speed limit through the area where the rail trail will cross. So I'll just bring that to your attention. I guess it's not a question, but.
Yeah, I think, and I can go through it really quickly so everyone, is more, made freshly aware. The county's role in speed limit or speed reduction request is that at the town level, they submit a request on any road within the town, and that's a county or a town road. It always starts at the local municipality or the town or a village, but most time it's a town. And there's a specific form that DOT needs to see it on. It's called a TE9A. We have numerous calls about this issue from lots of people, from all kinds of people around the county. And I generally will ask them to start with the town clerk. The town clerks are normally very familiar with the process. They usually can look at an older resolution that the town has done. There's sometimes there's board members that maybe not agree with a request, but some, most of the time it goes through fine. As the TE9A form, the county's involved only that there's a resolution in the TE9A form, and sometimes there's petitions attached, then comes to the county highway, which I've never not or approved or sent one on. It's not really my role. I think it's just, we are a conduit for this process. And what I'll do is when I get them and sign them, I make sure that the resolution, the language in the resolution closely matches what the TE9A form, and that I've seen where there can be confusion because the DOT is going to look at the TE9A form and it's say from one intersection to another, or it's the whole length of the road. I just want to make sure that what they're asking for in the resolution is the same as what's on the TE9A form. Most of the time it is, but I don't want to see time get wasted. So I sign it, we send it to the traffic department at DOT. In pre-COVID, it was about a 3-month process, which around the state, that's pretty quick from what I was familiar with another. It has lengthened now. It may be getting better, but I know it's still more than 3 months. I'm not sure exactly what they would say that they're doing, turning them around in as far as a decision of reducing the speed. But German Crossroad, happy to talk to the town, but they're very well aware of the process to start,
I think they are. And I wonder, do we ever send a recommendation along with when you pass it off? Should we, in a case like this where we've got a serious pedestrian situation?
Martha asked that a lot, and my thing with that is the process. Not that we can't, but it's the process that the state uses is what we're told is very much based on engineering science and also area. So like for us to recommend one, and then we just end up recommending all of them. So we could, but I don't know that it's going to help, number one, because their decision isn't based on that opinion. It's only based on where they show up and the visuals and the speed data that they record. The lay of the road, if you will, the curves, the hills, and then the intersecting driveways and things like that. That's how it's worked. I mean, we could always look at that and, possibly develop, add another county level and say, look, we'd like to see this happen. But I think I don't know how we could recommend one and not the other.
Let me take it up with Greg Mezzi, the legislator there. Maybe he'll want to bring a resolution or something.
Sure.
Thank you. And my final question is, any update now that we have the Senate and Assembly budgets out, one house budgets out there, any potential changes in our highway funding?
The last I heard, everything was really in good shape. We had some increases. There was a new program introduced by the governor, and that was adding money to each county, town, everyone that receives. This is all, I'm only referring to CHIPS funding, Consolidated Highway Improvement Program CHIPS funding, which is a very large part of everything any highway department does across the state, or DPW. I don't know the exact numbers. I haven't seen CHIPS runs, what they call runs, when they basically put the formula through the available funding. And we really won't see that until there's a passed budget. But I have no reason to be concerned that we're going to be receiving at least what we did last year, and possibly with the new program, more. And so to just put a general number, and this is my experience of other programs where they've added this amount of money, the money that they're adding is similar to another program. I think it's 150 million. When we received 150 million across the state, the county, Tompkins County, received about another $260,000. So you don't know until you see the actual program and how it's run, and if there's pieces that take it out, and it has to be an approved budget. But I think it's a pretty solid budget for our CHIPS funding.
I see a nod and smile from Lisa.
Yeah, just coming back from the NISAC conference, and what we learned from there, as Jeff said, CHIPS is fully funded. Then Pave New York at another 150 million. And then the Senate has since added another 250 million to CHIPS. So we'll see if that remains in or not. So it's only increasing from the Senate and Assembly.
Yeah.
Well, that's optimistic.
Just to add also, if I may, when that happens, I will have to do a budget adjustment. So there will be a budget adjustment come through F&I and the ledge, so everyone will see what an actual increase is. If there, there's a longer story to that, how I had to do it, how I had to put CHIPS revenue in there this year based on rollover from a couple years ago. So there's a long, and I'll be able to tell that whole story when there's an adjustment.
Okay.
Well, they have
Lee?
they have 2 weeks and it looks like they're gonna have an on-time budget, so.
Well, we always like to make budget adjustments to add money.
Yeah. I know.
Anything else for Jeff? Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you.
Let's go to airport. Who's with us? I see Josh. Is Roxanne today or not? Josh, it's your show today.
No.
Glad to have you.
Good morning. I don't have too much stuff other than TSA has extended the mask mandate to April 18th. So there's some stuff out in the news about lawsuits and stuff. So we'll see what happens. But until we get word, we'll be still requiring anybody curb to curb to be wearing a mask in the terminal until the 18th of April. Other than that, we don't have too much stuff to report. We're working with the airlines that are currently at the airport to regain frequency. So it's ongoing conversations, just trying to let them know that we're trying to be a partner here and move forward to get our seats back in the market. So that's been our task here the last few weeks. Other than that, that's all I have.
Josh, do we know when we might hear on our application for the airport grant for the state?
We don't. There hasn't been much information about that. It's pretty quiet on the state level. We do have the infrastructure bill. We're still trying to get some guidance on that through the federal federal package. But there's some like misguided information out there. So we really haven't got a lot to report on that 7 million that's can be used for new infrastructure projects. We're hoping that we can utilize them on some of the incoming projects that the FAA has on the ACIP program. But until we get that guidance, we don't really have much information on it.
How about our employments? Are they going up at all?
Not really. Our seats are full. There is a huge pilot shortage in the country. So when the pandemic came through, just a quick analysis or opinion on it, if they had 100 pilots flying the larger aircraft through, their hub airports, they retired a lot of their higher dollar pilots out, which of course then that started shorting the pilots. So then they pretty much promoted the pilots that fly into airports like Ithaca to the larger aircraft, and now so our aircraft are short on pilots. So it's hopefully it doesn't get worse, but they're saying almost 2 to 3 years before they can get their pilot numbers back up. American Airlines reported that they need to hire in the next 2 years like 19,000 pilots. So we're watching that. We're working with the airlines to try to hopefully get bigger aircraft so we can get our enplanements up. We don't want them. The good part is we haven't had any airlines pull out of the airport. They have reduced their flights or moved from airports that they've had stress with because different airlines fly under like what we call the American tail. So you'll have a SkyWest Airlines. If they're short on pilots, go jets might have more pilots. So the airlines have been moving the aircraft around to different spots. That's why we're going back to Newark and back to Philadelphia. So some people like that, some people don't like that, but we still have service. So we're working on regaining the service or larger aircraft to get our enplanements back where they need to be. We also have had preliminary talks with low-cost carriers. It's so preliminary that we don't know if it'll happen or not, but we've had some good conversations with them. They're looking at the Ithaca market. Cornell University is working with us. So I think if we just keep progressing in the direction we're going, we'll be okay.
That's helpful. Questions or comments for Josh this morning? Guess not. Get off easy this morning. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Mike.
Arel is up next. Morning, Arel.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Well, we're good. What do you have for us this morning?
There was a request to get an update on the public safety building short-term
Yes.
improvement projects. I know that in the past I have sent through the legislative office a spreadsheet that gives kind of an idea of what those improvements are. I've done a few updates, so I'm going to share my screen now and show.
That's fine.
That. Are you all able to see this spreadsheet? Okay, so I've categorized it into the three categories that
We aren't seeing it, Arel.
Oh, you're not? Okay, hold on. How about now?
Yes.
Okay, so these are a summary of the proposed public safety building improvements that we actually expect to get the proposals from the contractors by next week and review them by the end of the week. So we've categorized them in the groupings that we expect to get proposals from. General work is one category. HVAC and plumbing would fall under a mechanical, and then electrical. So as you can see, really by far the largest work is going to be under the general work from 1.6 to 1.9. And we have ranges because we've included what we call alternates in our proposal request. So those alternates typically are items that we would accept if the base proposal or base bid is lower than our project budget which is the 3.75 million. So that's why I have ranges in each of the groupings. But I mean, I can go over the summary of the improvements, but really the highlights would be that first item is converting the existing holding cell into separate holding cells, 3 separate holding cells. It's a very large holding cell. And one of the challenges that the correction side has is when they need to place individuals in holding, they only have one holding cell. So that's one that was shared with the Public Safety Committee in the past. We've incorporated into this project. Also, it will help as they, now that we have the centralized arraignment court at the Public Safety Building, they can hold those individuals that have to appear before the magistrates or judges courts on a weekly basis. Also, we're doing several improvements in the kitchen area, replacing the original grease trap interceptor. We're doing some ceiling work in the kitchen, some plumbing there as well. We're doing flooring and ceilings throughout the building, but only as required because our budget is limited. And so it's not throughout the entire building. It's focused in just certain areas. Also, we're doing improvements in the briefing room. So one of the goals was to make improvements on both sides, the admin, but more specifically in the detention side where you have staff, correction staff. There have been no improvements in any of those spaces since 1986. So basically we're replacing flooring, ceilings, and such in those staff areas, which include briefing room, control room, the staff areas like the chief, Ray Bunce's office and other staff offices there. Basically, carpet replacements, has almost original carpeting there. The rest of the building is vinyl composition tile. So we are replacing it in some areas, although it's held up pretty well all these years. We are doing a lot of work in the dorm shower area, replacing the walls, the floors, the ceiling there. And then there's associated work in both the mechanical and electrical there for improved ventilation. A lot of the steam that's generated there has caused a lot of rusting of the existing detention ceilings there. So we're increasing the exhaust in those areas. We are also doing a new bathroom in the booking area. The booking area was a block. They converted part of that into booking, and we're putting a bathroom there for that booking area as they are bringing in new inmates into the facility. Putting a new corrections officer post station where the medium and maximum security is. As I said, new ceilings and flooring throughout, and we're replacing the exterior gate operator intercom and doing some miscellaneous brick and structural repairs around the outside of the building. Then in the HVAC plumbing, it's almost an even split between HVAC and plumbing work. As I said before, we're doing work in the kitchen. We're replacing the cooler condensers for the walk-in cooler. We'd like to replace the entire cooler. That exceeds our budget, so we're just replacing the condensers that are up above the coolers, replacing that grease trap interceptor that I indicated. It failed probably 3-4 years ago, so we put in a temporary grease trap interceptor, knowing that this project was coming soon. And so that grease interceptor has to be cleaned out monthly. And if it doesn't, then it overflows. So we're putting a larger system outside that can last 2 to 3 months. We're replacing some HVAC grills throughout the facility, some detention plumbing, fixture valves and controls. And that's the big one. That by far occupies most of our maintenance labor for that facility, between that and HVAC calls on heat pumps. And so what we are doing is replacing all of these valve controls and piping in all the plumbing chases at each dorm and block area. Then we're also doing new bathroom fixtures. Those are original fixtures in the staff areas. Those are porcelain type fixtures that we're replacing, and doing a lot of fire damper actuator replacement and repairs. That's on the HVAC plumbing. Then as we go to the electrical, really the main chunk of work in the electrical is replacing the existing generator. It's an original generator. We've had many issues lately over the years, and so it's unreliable. So we're replacing both the generator and the transfer switch, which is the bulk of the electrical work. And then also we're doing LED lighting upgrades only in areas where we are touching ceilings in both the detention and the administration side of the facility. We'd like to do the entire building, but our budget doesn't allow that. And then we're doing security control system modifications as a result of some of the work that we'll be doing on detention door hardware in the facility. And so the total between those three categories is the $3.75 million in costs. I do have a folder here of pictures, but I'm not sure that I'm able to share that, but let me see if I can. It's several pictures. I know some of you have walked through the facility just recently.
Arel, before you change the screen, why don't I ask if there are questions about what you've
Okay,
just
sorry.
gone through. Let's ask about that. And Amanda and Ann or anyone else on Zoom, please call out because we can't see your faces right this minute. Are there questions about what Arel just went over as far as the scope of these improvements? Lee?
Just kind of wondering a little bit, you've got some decisions to make longer term about the whole project, and you have various iterations and potential new configurations of the jail or public safety building. Would all of these improvements factor in or be a start toward a larger project, or are they a temporary fix, or do they form the basis for stepping into some type of expansion?
That's not an easy one to question. It's a good question, and it's one that I expected to be asked. Some of them do. The challenge is this was not part of the original plan. The original plan was to move forward with a larger project. And as I explained, I think at previous Facility and Infrastructure Committee meetings, was that we did a presentation 2 years ago, just prior to COVID. And so the plan had been to get an approval for an option. Since that was put on hold, I had to proceed with improvements. And so as each improvement that we looked at, yes, some of them would help as we move forward to the larger projects. Others might not, depending on which option is accepted. So we're making improvements in several areas in your medium and maximum. There was one option that called for removal of basically demolition of the maximum wing. So if that option was selected, then whatever improvements we make in those areas, would not obviously, help towards that option. The kitchen work are things that I think would remain the same, depending, based on most options that we would move forward on, except obviously if we did a new building somewhere else. But aside from that, all these plumbing improvements in the areas of the building that would not be touched as part of a larger project, those would remain. And so I would say probably 50% of or less of those might not be affected by any of the options that have been presented as we move forward. But that was the challenge. That, as I said, this was not the plan A. This was a plan B. However, the thing is that we have to address these building deficiencies, and if we don't, we may have failure of key systems in the building.
I appreciate that. It's good background, Arel, and I'm assuming a new generator would probably be sized so it could take on something much larger.
Oh, yes. I mean, that part of it, yes. The generator would be able to accommodate any of the options.
Those answers.
Okay. I just want to say, Ann, I saw a chat from you. Is there anything you want to follow up on that?
No, I just want to thank Arel for this, the level of detail on this, because I know people have been asking for it, and it's good to, it's good to have this knowledge, because it's a lot of money to spend. So I appreciate it.
Thanks. Randy?
Yeah, thank you very much, Arel, for the information. As you get the bids or quotes from the people, I assume you'll share them with the committee as those come in. When do you hope to start doing work up there, or are things going on?
Well, that will be included in the proposal. The challenge that we're experiencing, as you're well aware of, is lead times. Lead times on things in the past that used to be pretty standard in stock are no longer. And so part of the proposal includes estimates from the contractors on lead times for the materials. We do not want to start, I think I've mentioned this before, with any work, especially on the correction side, until the contractors have all the materials and equipment on hand. And so that's what's going to take the longest before we actually start. I mean, we'll be able to, award very quickly, but actual work in the facility will be months. And so, I mean, we'd like to start early summer. That will be dependent on, getting materials. And it's not only for one contractor like general work, but for all of them, because once they get into correction side, we've zoned the work. And so they can only work in one zone at a time. They can't be spread out throughout the facility. So, they're zone one. Most likely we have general work, electrical, mechanical. And so the work would start in zone one, and everyone has to have materials and equipment ready to do zone one. Once that's completed, we move to the next zone. So that's the challenge working in the public safety building. What we wanted to avoid was to board out any of the inmates. Fortunately, the inmate count is low, which allows flexibility to, Ray Bunce, chief there, to move inmates, throughout the building as we're focusing in different zones. So, as I said, once we get the proposals, we will be able to report first to the sheriff and his staff on when that would start, but also to the committee.
Thank you.
Now, are you able to see these pictures on the screen or not?
Not right now, but I have one more question I wanted to ask.
Okay.
Randy's not finished either. Go ahead, Randy.
We did take a tour up there, and the building is definitely showing its age, and you can see where a lot of improvements were needed. And of course, they shared with us some of the problems they're having up there, and there's quite a few. So and there were other issues they had. Space, of course, is an issue. You're not adding any space because you're not building any walls.
Right.
So I think you've got challenges there to deal with that.
Right.
One of the areas I noticed that looked like it needed to be updated was where the physicals were done. And I know that's not part of this list, but I mean, even the table or I guess that I should call it, where they sit at looked like it was from the 50s. You definitely got your hands full. So thank you.
Right, and as I indicated before, the larger project really is focused on addressing those space deficiencies to allow for more programming on the correction side. And if you walk through the sheriff's administration side, they are bulging. We've basically converted existing closet storage rooms into office space. And so, yes, this short-term project does not address the space needs, except for where I said we converted one holding cell into 3. Aside from that, it's really only addressing building deficiencies that have been an issue for many years.
Well, we have an agreement with the Public Safety Committee, basically, that before we move ahead, they will have approved whatever programmatic changes there are. Have they approved all of these that you want to go ahead with?
Actually, I'm sharing these with the Public Safety Committee meeting this afternoon. Yes, they're aware of it. It's been communicated to them. It's been probably a year or so. They want just a refresh because they have new legislators in that committee. So I'm doing a similar presentation this afternoon to that committee.
Thank you for that. I suppose if they're not happy, we'll hear about it.
Oh, no.
I don't imagine they won't be happy, but.
No, this has been a collaborative effort, especially with staff, sheriff staff, correction staff. So the reason for these alternates that I indicated before is that we would have, initial meetings, and we've been meeting for a year, and then we had a set scope, and then a month would go by, and then they would want to add one thing. And so we've added a lot of improvements to the project, and they're all good. And so I think we have a good project to move forward with. Some of the initial things that were not included but are good is this holding cell that I indicated. We're also changing out on the civil office. When you come into the main lobby of the public safety building, the only window that does not have bullet resistant glazing is a civil office. And so there was expressed concern by staff there, supported by LaBella as well in their experience in all the public safety buildings they've done throughout the state to convert that. So we are doing that at the public safety building for the civil records office there. The others have been fairly minor additions that staff brought up, but all very good additions to the project.
Okay, good. Anything else on the jail?
Now, I was trying to share the pictures to see.
Yes, I'm sorry. Why don't you go ahead and do that?
Are you able to see the screen with
We
pictures?
see multi-pictures right now.
Okay. All right, so I'm opening up one picture, and I've not done this before. Are you able to see this single picture?
Not yet.
Okay, so it may not. I think, do you see it now?
No, we just see the gallery.
Okay. All right, it may not, since they're large size, they may not come through. Still, you're seeing the gallery only?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so these are, and I'm not sure how well you can see the gallery. So, do you see my pointer at
Yes.
these pictures? So we're replacing these doors. They're all rusted, the frames. You can see we put kick plate at the bottom of these doors, but basically we're replacing all exterior doors that over the 30 some years have rusted out. This is an electrical panel. We're upgrading this entire electrical panel. This one here is piping. It's hard to see, but it's a lot of the copper piping in certain areas of the building have pinhole leaks, so that's all being replaced. Putting in water treatment for the entire building. That is one of the reasons where we've had over the many years problems with all our plumbing controls for the detention side, sinks, showers, and toilets. So we're putting water conditioning for the entire facility. This is a gate here. We're replacing the gate operator. This room here is where the generator is, and you can see the generator. These pictures here of the generator that needs to be replaced. As we go further down, let's see here. This is the cooler. Right there is the cooler. Right above it is where we're replacing the condenser. This is right here, this black box, if you can see it, that's the grease interceptor that if it's not replaced after 28 days or pumped out, it overflows. So we're putting a larger tank outside that I think is 750 gallon tank. These are pictures. This right here is a storage closet that we, on the admin side, that we just converted to offices, 3 or 4 workstations, just showing some of the space issues. This here, if you see it, is that lobby civil office glazing that's being replaced here with bullet resistant glazing. And that's probably, this right here, if you can see it, is the one holding cell. It's a very large holding cell that will be separated into 3 separate holding cells. It's something that the staff are really looking forward to, because right now it's very challenging if they have more than one individual that has to be put in holding temporarily. And I will leave it at that.
Any additional questions? Thanks for the pictures, Corral. Pictures are always helpful. Randy raised another question, and maybe we could just talk about it briefly. And that was about the Tyga Street buildings, the dental building and the red house there. At one point, I kind of asked what it would take for the dental building to be repaired, not to first-class offices, but for temporary usage. And I wondered where we were with that.
Well, and I shared that with Lisa, and I apologize, I didn't respond to you. The unfortunate thing is that that building, if we were to occupy it, we would have to do code improvements. The law requires that. It would be change of use. And that would then kick in the requirement for sprinkler system, which the building does not have, an addressable fire alarm system, which it does not have. The roof needs to be replaced. It was not done by the previous owners. We were not aware of that, but that would need to be replaced. It's not accessible. It's not an accessible building. All the entrances are raised. There's no ramp, so we have to make those improvements. And so between all of those improvements that are code required, it would be in the $500,000 to $700,000 range just for, for temporary use. And so that is cost prohibitive. My recommendation is not to invest that amount of money in a building that is really not suited for offices. They're very small spaces. We would have to do a lot of interior remodeling just to accommodate office use.
Even for temporary usage, for example, if we were going to build another building?
Yes, you can't. The code only distinguishes, there is no temporary in the code. Code distinguishes if you're occupying it. Occupying there's no temporary use allowed.
Well, I think about, for example, this building does not have sprinklers in it where we're located. And the reason you'd have to do that over there is because of a change of usage from a dental building to an office building?
Yes, and also ownership. We own the building now. And so it was the same identical situation that happened when we purchased the Center for History and Culture. It changed, the use changed. And because of that, it kicked in all the requirements for sprinkler. So we had to do sprinkler, we had to do ADA improvements, we had to do an addressable fire alarm system. So, we, as much as we wanted to avoid that, we could not avoid that. And so, yes, it's in your building, it's because it's been the same use all along, the same ownership, that at least, that in a way almost is grandfathered in. But if we were to do significant improvements and it would change the type of use, yes, we would have to look at whether, certain things would be required, such as sprinklers.
Okay, Ann?
Thank you. I totally concur with, I understand, what Ariel's talking about, that, change of ownership and use, trips this requirement. It's almost as if it was new construction, trips up the code enforcement at this point. I would, Randy and I were talking about this, I think, after our last meeting. And so I wanted to bring it up here and I don't know if we talked about it during the meeting, but getting an estimate for the demolition of that building, just because, versus the cost of maintaining it, securing it.
Right.
If the roof should collapse in, or if somebody should get in there and get hurt, they can sue us, or if somebody gets up on the roof, all of those are illegal activities, but we could still be sued. So I'm just wondering, if how much trouble that would be to get an estimate for demolition on that building.
I would enjoy doing that. That would be my recommendation. You may or may not know, we did have a break-in, I think it was last year, into that building. And I mean, we monitor it. So our maintenance staff do, drop in there, weekly. I was just there yesterday to look at the condition, but yes, we would be liable if somebody were to get in there and get hurt. Our concern is that the roof is unstable. We do not allow any of our maintenance staff on the roof. The deck that supports roof is rusted and corroded. We have water leaks, active water leaks on one portion of the building. And so they've devised creative ways to capture the water and divert it to a sink. But yes, I would want to provide an estimate for the deconstruction, because I know we typically look at deconstruction. It would cost a little more versus demolition, but deconstruction of the structure. But that would be my recommendation.
Yes, deconstruction, of course, anything that could be salvaged, possibly with the assistance of reuse, or whoever would be willing to figure out how to reuse those things. Just wondering what Lisa thought about that too, and other members of this committee.
Well, Lee's got his hand up too, but go ahead, Lisa, if you've got a comment.
I agree. I mean, I concur with Arel's recommendation that if we are no longer able to use it, it's a liability for the county, and it's not a positive contribution to the neighborhood.
Lee?
I'm just trying to get a sense, as a new person here, what the long-term vision is. And I know you've had a rapidly changing landscape here. Is the purpose now to maintain that land for something in conjunction with a future downtown building, or are we looking at it for parking, or someday down the road having it as an asset that could be used for another project? Or is there no real county use for it moving forward? Is there a marketability rather than spending the money to tear that down?
I'm happy to jump in here because I think that the future use is unknown at this point. With the original intention was to purchase and use that area for the center of government construction.
Right.
When we purchased the Tioga and Buffalo Street real estate that on the corner there, we saw that as a more desirable location, but did not want to make any sudden moves with this location because of the need for potential staging for the construction on Tioga and Buffalo. And I think the legislature still has to make some determination about the future use of that property, either for resale, for parking, or for further construction if there's a need for another building.
Have you looked at having the property appraised to see what it could market for?
No, Jay has done, has looked at the value of that property. I'd have to go back.
If I could jump in, these are all questions, Lee, that we're going to be addressing in our special meetings about space needs and downtown facilities. That's all part of that. So I don't know if we have answers for you at this point. The only decision that was made by the legislature was to sell off the Sears Street lots. But this property is nearly adjacent to our downtown campus. And as Mark Twain once said, they stopped making real estate a long time ago. So we want to be very, very careful about this. But as interesting as Arel's comments about the dental building, I'm thinking about, what does this say to us about the Red House? How would you sprinkle that, for example, if you wanted to use it There was some discussion about rehabbing that as part of a center of government building 2 years ago. And a lot of us were kind of raising our eyebrows about that. So that may be a reason to sell off that red house, which was looked at from day one, and let somebody else deal with that old historic house. But that's something else we got to talk about in the committee. Ann?
Thanks for bringing that up, Mike. That was on my mind too, although I didn't want to bring up too many things at this point, but you know, so when we do talk about that, you know, maybe we should have one of those special meetings soon, because that, you know, that's another thing is, I know Arel will agree that the longer, you know, as I'm a home inspector, I can attest to, it does not take very long with a vacant building that is not maintained to a high degree with a high cost and high amount of labor for a building to deteriorate. So that's an asset that we should definitely look at very soon, the red house.
Yes.
I'm sure Rel and I both remember the old library.
Yeah.
So do I.
Right. The interesting thing was when we moved to the new library back in 2000, I was told that makes temporary improvements to those front steps at the library. So we did. I said, how much time? 18 months. Well, we didn't get rid of it until almost 18 years later. And so when I hear temporary from in the county, I always have to, you know, factor my multiple of 10 sometimes.
Randy?
Yes, I actually went over to those buildings yesterday myself. It was a beautiful day. I was here walking over there, and all very well secured building. No signs of any vandalism other than a little bit of spray paint here and there. People make remarks. But if it's a building that we can't use and we're not going to sell that parcel and let somebody else deal with it, then I agree that demolishing that would be a good idea. I think I would really like to see if we do something like that, that we really try to get minority and women-owned businesses to bid on that. There's more minority women-owned businesses that are in that category than they are doing big buildings. So that would be something to look at. I think parking is important. So I think it's a discussion for everybody. Could be a lot of parking for county employees, which would be a benefit, especially if we didn't charge them. And in the other building, that I think has historic status, the red building, I think, doesn't it? Is it historic?
Yes.
Status. So it's a nice building. It needs a lot of work, and it's going to take a lot of money to do that. But we should have a discussion about what the plans are in a special discussion.
So that kind of leads us into the discussion about scheduling a special meeting. I think that's what we really need to do. I appreciate, Lisa, you're getting us the summary report of the space study that was done last time. I think there's been some changes that need to be talked about. And I would personally like to have a special meeting of this committee in April to start going through these things. And I wondered, does that make sense to the rest of you to schedule a meeting and we'll have some time to digest what we have here. Maybe we'll get out the old SUMP report, Space Use Master Plan. I've got that in my office somewhere.
I'm surprised you remembered the name, Mike.
Well, that was Frank Proto's name for it, the SUMP. I remember that. But so that's what I'd like to do. And I'm going to ask Katrina to try to find us a meeting date in April, not today, obviously, but see if we can work up something that would work for all of us and for Lisa, obviously. Anything else on that? Amanda?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just want to have very clear goals for that meeting. What are we going to discuss? Who's going to be there? I'm
we'll work up an agenda.
Yeah, but I don't want it to just sort of be 2 hours of like chit chat. I think that, we need to have some specific things that we want to come out of, or which specific, topics are we going to talk about? So we're using everyone's time as efficiently as possible.
Okay, but at last meeting, we did agree to do these special meetings, so. Lisa,
To Amanda's point and for our clarification, so we have that most recent version of the space study. And I know that the future, some of the future action items were to discuss what has changed since then, which departments should be added to the space study. And then Arel, I believe, was going to be engaging with Holt, as they have done all the space studies, to update that accordingly. And then after that, and I'm not saying that we'll get to all of these.
I really think we need a discussion before we turn that over to Holt to do anything, especially after reading this update, which seemed targeted to me.
Okay. But then I think the longer range goal is that at some point we will be issuing an RFP for the design of the building. So that's kind of where we're going, and how much we can get to at the upcoming special meeting is to be determined.
Well, I agree, but I don't think we've got any land speed record here to head for a new building. I don't think we made that decision yet at all. We decided to buy the property to be able to have that option. But I don't think, and especially if we're heading for a recession, which is possible, we've got to be very, very careful about what we're doing. That's my feeling. Amanda.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure what I want to say, but I think I just want to be careful about having another meeting where, I mean, we still have a half an hour here. We could be talking about some of this now. I feel like, yes, nobody has agreed exactly what we're going to build. We're not, it's going to be a long process. So what is are we going to get together and talk about specifically the red building and the dental building? Or are we going to specifically talk about, the space study report and what needs to happen next? Or, I guess maybe I'm not being very clear. I just don't want to have another meeting just to talk about it. Like, will this committee then be having a recommendation to go forward to the legislature from that meeting? Okay, so we talk about it, we decide, here's what we think we should do with the red building or the red house. We're going to then take that to the legislature for further discussion and a vote. I mean, we could talk about these things for the next year, just this committee, and that, maybe that's what folks want to do, but I don't want to spend my time having numerous conversations about these things without sort of a goal of where we're going. And, I think at the last meeting, we did talk about using Holt to update the space study. Maybe we didn't vote on it and agree, but we did talk about using them because they did the previous space study for them to do the next update. But then going forward for, design a larger building, whatever it is we want to do next, we were going to look at more vendors and more, try to get bids or whatever from other people. So that's something I think that we do need to decide, like, do we want Arel and Lisa to engage with Holt again and have them do the update? So anyway, I'll stop there, but I just want to, again, emphasize, using our time and our staff's time as efficiently as possible. Thanks.
And
Yeah, I concur with what Amanda was saying. I'm wondering if, so two ideas that I have is, one is we could, in my opinion, we could be more judicious with our meetings here and try and get everything done first hour. The second hour for every meeting could be just discussing this, and try that for a while besides adding another meeting. And but to help us be more efficient, I'm trying to think of what Amanda was saying. What might be helpful, and again, this is just one idea I have, is a decision tree. And I don't know if anybody's used those before, where you have it mapped out where, like, okay, this is the first, decision that we make, do we need another building or not? And then you have it mapped out so we can see where we're going, and then we can mark our progress on there. If it's yes, then we go this way. If it's no, we go this way, and blah, blah, blah. And it helps map out those steps where, and then we be, again, very judicious about keeping on topic and on track and not going further into the decision tree or off of the decision tree, but we stay on that, because in the past, I'm not necessarily saying this committee, but the legislature as a whole, we can talk about things for years, and then 2 years down the road going, oh, what did we come up with 2 years ago? And we have to rehash all of that, especially with this topic. So that's an idea that I have.
well, we made the decision last meeting that we would have special meetings about this, and I'm going to proceed along those lines. I think both Amanda and Ann make good comments here that we should be trying to focus. But I think we need to have a meeting when we start talking about this and deciding what we need in this space study before I've been on many space study committees, so I mean, I'm not a newborn here with respect to them. And I know there's a lot of information that we don't have at this point. And I think we need to get started with it. And I think we need to do it as we decided. So I'm going to proceed to schedule a meeting, and we will have an agenda, and we'll be starting out with the space study and what we expect it to accomplish for us and how we proceed with it. Randy.
I thought in the last meeting, we decided that we were going to get a quote from Hull, what it was going to cost to update the space study. So I think we need to look at that first, what's going to cost. What would be helpful for me is we look at all the buildings you have, and if you have information or not, what you do the space study would say, this is how many people we have in this building, this is the square footage, less common area, and just to share that kind of stuff, just to know where we are today. Regarding I agree with Ann and Amanda, we need to cut these things to the chase. It's always been a pet peeve of mine as a constituent, how long that library sat empty. That would bug me every time I drove by it. It's actually good to do construction, by the way. They are doing work over there now. But I think that the first decision has to be made is, and I think you've already made it before I got here, was that you're not going to build on that Cedar Street property, right? There's too many complications there, but you're just not going to do it. So if you're not going to do that, if you're going to build anywhere, you're going to build on the parcel you just built. So the decision for me, the quick one, is what are you going to do with that parcel in those buildings? And I think that's a recommendation we can take to the entire legislature, because I think a lot of other legislatures are very curious and have opinions on that. So that's my point.
Well, if you read the what Lisa gave us, you've got decisions like, are we going to sell the old jail? Are we going to sell this building that we're in right now? Is that the intention of the county when we build? Are we going to build a giant building? Are we gonna build maybe a modest building? Or maybe we're gonna hold off a few years? Or maybe we're gonna decide as soon as the leases are up at the corner of Tioga and Buffalo, we're gonna proceed right along to tear down Building C and build something. I don't know. I don't think we made that decision yet. I hope we haven't made it.
But from the committee, from what we were saying here, it sounds like Ariel and Lisa are saying we need to demolish that building over there. That's the recommendation over there on the Tioga Sear Street parcel. So I think those are types of action items we should be looking at.
Well, Lisa, I agree with you.
Quicker than later. But, and if we're gonna hang on that red building or sell it or whatever it is, those decisions should be made, like, because empty buildings are not good.
Anything else?
There's just one, this is maybe getting into substance, but I recently had a conversation with Greg Potter about Building C. And while it may be after a process, a long-term desire or outcome that that building be deconstructed, it is home to a lot of the county's, the servers. And one of the assumptions that was built into a process would be that to not to have to relocate that in while we were building another building. So that's just something else, one of many considerations that we will have to make, because if we took that building down as we were building another building, we would need to relocate a lot of IT equipment, and it would increase costs. So that's yet one more consideration. And I know we're getting into detail now, but I just want to.
Thank you for raising that issue. That's important. Okay. We have minutes to approve of February 17th. Randy moves them and seconds them. Any discussion or changes? Thank you, Katrina, for doing our minutes. They're always good. All those, well, let's vote on them, I guess. I'll be glad when we all get together, we can just say all in favor. We can't. Randy?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
Lee? Yes. Did you get a mover and a seconded? Okay. And I vote yes, of course. We have budget adjustment transfers for information only. There's a vacation payout budget transfer out of the facilities department. There's an ITCTC budget transfer, and there's a budget adjustment and transfer report. Does anyone have questions about any of those? Okay, anything else anyone would like to bring up today? All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn. So Randy and Lee, all in favor? I'm going to say all in favor on this one. Okay. Lisa, thank you for joining us, and everybody else that's out there. I'm sorry?
I just said thank you.
Oh, okay. Good meeting, folks, and we'll look forward to trying to schedule the space study meeting.